Hey y'all, and welcome to part 5 of the tutorial. In the last video, we got our players from their spawn point to where the mission is going to take place up here at Martin Fob and then later Puesto Vulcan. Now we got to start figuring out what they're actually going to do as part of this mission and what and who is going to be trying to stop them. So that's going to be obstacles, enemy contact, things of that nature. And so with that, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is maybe start to figure out something for them to happen while going from Fob Martin down the hill and across over to Puesto Vulcan, because they've probably been sitting in the spawn area for 30 minutes or so, just getting everyone ready to go. Then we had briefing, then they had that helicopter ride, and then they have to get all the way over there. And a pretty cool tool to figure out how long we're talking about is if you go into the map, and you right click, let's say somewhere near the entrance to Martin Fob, you hit other tools, measure distance, and you come over here to Puesto Vulcan, and other tools, measure distance. At the top, it's going to say, it's about 1,100 meters, and on foot, it's going to be just shy of a 5-minute walk. So that's not too long, so maybe we could, do something with that, but for now, let's just get something going in here. So we have a few different things. It could be enemies, it could be obstacles. I want to start with maybe some obstacles. So I was looking through here, and you could do a couple different things, right? I want to put a minefield. Not a big, dense minefield. I want it to be like, hey, during the night, insurgents have been going through and putting explosives kind of along this valley just to sort of interrupt the flow of troops between the two, kind of slow them down. And so what I want to do is you could do a few different things. We could go through objects, props, mine. Where are they? Here they are. Down here are explosives. And you could put some of these down on the ground. And that can get a little tedious. And then also I've seen that sometimes when I place it as a prop, it's not always armed, especially when we were using Ace. So then you have to go through as a Zeus and actually place them. And you could do that during the 30 minutes before an op. You could go through, spawn a guy out here with a backpack full of mines, and then while your players are playing dress up, go through and set up some mines. But again, I like to set up my missions so that if I needed to or wanted to, I can play for at least parts of it as well. So I'm just sort of looking at, so it's you pretty quickly lose visibility between Martin and this valley, kind of in this area. So this is probably where they're going to try to put something, and it is kind of right in between, right? So what I want to do is I want to go under systems, and I'm just going to type in mines. And under sites, we get minefield. And I'm going to put this down. Location does matter. And if we click into it, we have some important options. So for right now, I want it to have been placed by the independents, aka our green 4, who are going to be our insurgents. An ellipse is fine. And then I'm going to do axis A of, let's say, 150 by 50. And then based on your mod pack, this could look differently. Obviously, we're not going to want naval mines. Slam mines are usually more anti-tank, so our players won't even set them off. Same with the ATs. I kind of think let's maybe go with some Apers mines. Because again, I'm imagining that our insurgents are just going to be kind of placing stuff randomly. If I had the mod, I think it's RHS, maybe Cup, where it would start to add in some of the IEDs and we could get options there. But I'm not using that with these, so we'll just go with Apers mines. Amount of mines, 50 for what we're imagining here might be a little much. So let's say, I don't know, let's say there's 15 in there, because again, we're not looking for an ultra dense minefield. We're looking for someone to screw up and not have their eyes open. And we'll include part of the briefing about, hey, keep your eyes open in this area, especially down in this valley, because that's where they like to plant shit at night. We're gonna say my understanding is that if we have this marked on map for friendlies only, it means that only friendlies of the independent, so in this case, independent and red 4, but it's AI, and we're not going to have them going through here. And even then, you know, these guys probably don't keep very good maps, so I'm going to put no. We would put yes for everyone if it's like, hey, I want everyone to be aware of this area. It's usually more of a PvPvE sort of scenario or PvP scenario. We can say, hey, like there's minefields left over in this area, so yes, you can get through them, but you're going to do it slow. And then true. You can just leave this alone because why would you set it to false? In which case, don't even set this. Maybe you could do some cool stuff with triggers with it, but we're not going to worry about that for right now. So the only thing I don't like about this is there's not really a good way to tell this bit. Axis A versus Axis B. I've even tried like going into Zeus and then adding editable objects to see if I get like the little yellow indicators of where they are, but it doesn't really happen. So my understanding is that axis, so if I were to face this up the hill like this, my understanding is that this is going to be axis A and that will be axis B. So I'm kind of putting it perpendicular to this valley, and then it should be, hey, we're going to get those 15 mines kind of scattered in this area. And so, and if we tell our players about that, it should make them actually think like, hey, if I take the most direct path, I might run into mines. And this is where we can say, we didn't have an EOD before. So if we come back to green base, right? Said we can change stuff up as we go. So maybe, let's see, this was a raider, team leader, auto rifleman, and this was just a normal raider. So maybe we make this guy, under role description, we can just make him EOD. And now I can go into here, and then under ace options, he is an EOD. We'll go up here into our lobby manager again, and yep, this makes sense. Actually, I'll move him right up above the raider, just keep our special things up at the top. And now I would just have to make sure that, hey, in my arsenal that we set up a few videos ago, that we have a defusal kit, which should be, yep, we already added one. And now we may also want a, where is it? You'd think I'd know how to read in alphabetical order. A mine detector, right? So now we've added a mine detector to our arsenal. And so now we can put our EOD guy and to say, hey, Bravo, you're going to go out in front. And then when you spot mines, either tell people where they are, you know, mark them sometimes we can go around or defuse them. So we've added some cool stuff for them to do. Okay, so we've got our minefield going. And that alone could add a little bit of tension and, you know, a little bit something to do. But we've gotten pretty far into the mission by now and no one's fired a shot. So what can we do? Well, we do have these sort of sparse trees up here. And we could set up an ambush, or at least someone like, hey, we got some enemies looking at the minefield, trying to be sneaky, and then whenever the players are trying to get through it, they will engage. So there's a couple different things we can do here. First, let's go ahead, and I'm using this Insurgency 2035 Takistani Insurgents, because again, I'm going near future. I'm going under groups just to make my life quick and easy. And we're going to face our first enemy unit of this whole tutorial series, and we're on video 5, like a couple hours in before I did this. But I'm just going to place this in, and I always recommend taking a quick look. So, yep, these guys look pretty appropriate. They've got the right kind of guns, the right kind of gear, a little mishmash of old Cold War looking kind of stuff. What we're looking for is what are they equipped with, not only the way they look, but with what they have. So for example, right, this looks pretty fine. It's like a fire team that might engage them out of the trees. Whereas if I go to, let's say, this AT, right, let's just take a look at what it means by AT. So this guy's got an RPG-7, so that's probably fine. But you want to just take a look, because I've run some missions where I just drop like infantry squad, say, and the AT, instead of having like an RPG-7, has, you know, a guided javelin or some weird thing like that for that particular group. And so, you know, if we're having players do a convoy mission and I'm accidentally dropping enemies that can engage them from, you know, a kilometer out with guided missiles, that's going to be a problem. So just do a quick look. So this MG, they have like a, let's see, it's, yeah, just one MG for the whole fire team. So let's go with this, because it seems kind of nice. And we're going to want them to be sort of in this area. So what I'm going to do is at mission start, right, I'm going to have them here, and I'm going to say, hey, you're going to be in open fire. Now, don't worry about formation, but we'll put you in a line, because that's going to be kind of what you want to ambush from. We're going to put you in stealth, and we're going to leave this normal, and we're going to go with enable dynamic simulation, delete when empty. Fine. And I'm going to call this call sign Valley Ambush, again, just to help me find it again later if I need to. And I'm going to say, okay, you're going to come up here. So again, we're just shift left clicking. That's a little far, so let's kind of go into here maybe. And we're going to sit there in stealth, and I forgot to add do not fire unless fired upon, actually, instead of just opening fire, right? So they're going to sit here, and they're going to try to be stealthy. They're going to try to hide in these trees and be prone. If our players are keeping their security up, right, that's not a particularly hard area to spot them in. So if they have their sights up, and if they have their you know, their security up, they may catch this ahead of time. But then again, they're players, they may not. And so what's going to happen is they will hang out in here. And now what I can do is I can say, all right, trigger, let's give us a 500 meter trigger. Now, what I want to do is, see here it says C-1, that means infinite height, but we have a helicopter flying around. So I'm going to make this more like 50, and you can see already this is, you know, not going to be triggered by our helo wheeling around if it needs to. I'm going to say, hey, when they get pretty close to this minefield, activation is when I'm going to say player, not blue 4, and when they are present, and server only. And let's say, and let's give this a timer, because I don't want it to snap right away. I want to give my players time to actually get into this minefield and realize, oh crap, you know, we're in a minefield. Let's say about somewhere between 60 seconds to 90 seconds later, with a midpoint of 75. You can use this kind of skew a little bit more towards 60 or a little bit more towards 90. Yeah, we're just going to have a countdown. So once it goes in, it takes that long. And now what I want to do, under object modifiers, set mode. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place that over here. I want to sync it. So sync to the leader of that group. And then I want to take this module, this trigger, and say sync to this. I'm just going to move this a little bit to the side so it's easier to see and easier to see what's going on. I'm going to call this ambush start. So now what it's done is, hey, when the players walk into this blue circle, it's going to fire off this trigger, and then 60 to 90 seconds later, it's going to trigger this module, which in turn is going to trigger this group. So what have we done? Well, we can come into here, and now we can change what it's doing. So we can say, hey, instead of being in hold fire, whatever, we can say, hey, we're going to open fire, engage at will. We'll stay in a line. We'll leave the speed unchanged, but we're going to go from stealth to combat. This is where we could say, if we lock them into, like, let's say, so because they're in stealth, they're already going to try to go prone if they can, right? But if I, just to push this even further, So I could come here into states and say, hey, I want you to stay lying down. I'm going to lock you into prone, right? And you'll even see they're going to stay prone. And then in here, if we go back under set module, whoops, for some reason it's still selecting the group. There we go. I could say stance, stand up, and then not going to do a captive or a vehicle lock. So now what should happen, whoops, this didn't save. Speed, no change. Formation, no change. Combat mode, open fire, engage at will. Okay. So let's demo this real quick. All right, so I come here into Zeus. I clear my errors. So right now, if I come out here, we can see these guys are very slowly going to crawl into position. And they're going to stay kind of close. They're not going to be perfect, right? And they'll kind of help bound and help cover each other. And now what we want to do is let's go ahead. Actually, let's see if I can even spot these mines. They're somewhere in there. Let me go ahead and just make sure I'm not about to teleport myself onto a mine. Teleport Zeus. All right, so there I am. So now if we watch here, see, they're still in stealth. They're still saying, hey, look at that stupid American that wandered into our minefield. Every once in a while the AI will do something silly like this, but they'll sort themselves out. And then we may fast forward through some of this. Yeah, for some reason we threw an error, but you can see, hey, now the timer's run out at a slightly random time. They're now standing. They are in combat. And if our team was actually spread out a little bit more, right, they would probably engage. They probably just can't see my guy from right here. So let me actually see if I can just get them to engage me. I need to... Yep, there we go. Now they're engaging me. They couldn't see me very well from the trees. But again, if our players were all out here, they'd probably see them a little bit sooner. So let's go ahead and get out of this. But you can see how scary that was, actually. Okay, I feel like here is actually a good point to sort of break our flow for a moment to talk about how we want to use this editor in terms of how much are we going to, pre-build in our mission versus how much are we going to do through Zeus. So again, I'm making these videos from the assumption that we are making this for the Disposable Heroes community. So small group of players, not the best surfers in the world, let's be honest. And someone is going to be Zeusing. If you are making, a single player scenario to put out on the web, you're obviously going to want to do everything in the editor. If you want to play as much as you can, you're going to want to do as much as you can in the editor. Here's where I sort of draw the line, is right now I've got a minefield and I've got an ambush. This is enough for me to put in the editor right now, because I've clearly set up a thing that I, the Zeus, don't have to do this. I don't have to micromanage this. I can see how they do with the mines, right? Maybe something bugs out with this minefield and it just doesn't spawn mines and my players breeze right through it. Maybe someone hits a mine and they get stuck in here doing a ton of medical, and then they get ambushed by this and they all get screwed up. And that could be enough. Or maybe they get through the mines really quick. They see these guys before they even get down. They engage from back here. They eliminate all four. And now I have a choice as a Zeus. Do I want to add more mines? Do I want to add more contact? Because they breeze through that way too easily. So I'm going to leave this sector here. Okay. I'm going to leave this sector here alone for now. And then again, in mission, in the Zeus, if my players breeze through this way too quick and are getting to Puesto Vulcan way too quick, we'll adjust from there. And we may or may not make some videos after these editor videos about some quick Zeus shortcuts. I haven't decided yet if I want to tack it on to the end of this one or not. So yeah, so for now, let's assume they make it over here to Puesto Vulcan and go from there. Okay, so now we got to start figuring out our objective here. We already decided earlier that we were going to use Nefer. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. And then we have to figure out why our players want to go there and what is going to be waiting for them. So first, how are we going to get them to go there? So in my mind, what I want to happen is for mortars to fire on this as they get close to it. And then maybe this is again where we draw the line between mission editor and Zeus. I am just going to have notes to myself as the Zeus that, hey, when these mortars go off, I'll get on the radio with the squad lead and say, hey, Puesto is you're taking mortars. We think it's coming from this area. Go take it out, right? We could do that with a bunch of scripts, and I'm sure there's a tutorial somewhere about how to make custom voice lines and add them to the mission. But again, this is a multiplayer mission. I need something to do. I can do that myself. So let's start with the objective, right? So I spotted out this little courtyard here. I think would make a nice little mortar pit. So if I come over here, I'm going to go to my green 4 statics. I already opened it up because I was testing something. And let's just put in some mortars. Now, oddly enough, when I was testing this earlier, these spawned with no ammo, but that's actually okay because with a small group like this, I don't necessarily want these engaging the players like they normally would. By which I mean, I don't want them dynamically engaging players every chance they get, because sometimes it's nice and thematic. Sometimes they will put, an unguided mortar round directly through 3-4 heads in succession, and then no one's having fun because the entire squad got wiped by a single mortar. So I'm going to let them spawn with no ammo. And you can see I already made them one group, so again, I'm not using up a bunch of AI. And now I need to figure out how to make them fire. So if they have no ammo, how are we going to do this? Well, there's a couple different things. One, there is a method in Zeus where I could, as the players get close, I can grab a fire support module, place some mortars around, and then go from there. And that can work, right? But what I can also do, if I want to do this in editor, and this is an editor tutorial, is if I come under markers, and let's say, where is it? Is it events? No, it's under, where is it? It's under effects, sorry. And then we need ordnance. So let's put it out here because I don't want it to actually hit the base. And I can say, it's an 82 millimeter mortar. Okay. And I'm going to just place these around like that. There's 3 mortars, so I'll put this one kind of close, so maybe, the patrol gets unlucky, maybe it doesn't, who knows. We can say, they're starting to kind of bracket this area. So now I can make a new trigger, make it a 500 meter trigger, set the height to 50, because again, we have a helicopter flying around. Activation is when any player is present and server only, and I'll give it like, hey, between 15 to 30 seconds, and I'll just make this like 20. And now I'm going to do connect to that. Whoops. Connect to that. And connect to that. And again, I think this is the first time it's really getting triggered, so I just want to go into detail. The reason why I'm doing any player and not blue 4 is because I have all these blue 4. So what that means, if I leave it on blue 4, it means the moment the mission starts, it's going to say, oh, look at all these blue 4 AI in here. I should go ahead and set off those mortars. So that's why I put it on any player. Hit OK. And now let's test. All right, so I'm in Zeus. Close that again. All right, so let's go up here to Vulcan. You can see these modules are here, but they're not going to do anything, right? So let me go ahead and teleport in myself. That should fire off the trigger. And then sometime it should stagger these out within that seconds, but every once in a while I'll see it just like lands all three at once. So we'll see what happens here in a moment. It did do all three at once. That's fine. Is maybe what I can do is set this one to, yeah, just break this connection, right? So this one does that. This one does that. And this one does that. And they all have that, that random time in there. So in theory, this should make them not all land absolutely simultaneously. Let's test. Yep, there goes 1, 2. And there's the third one. Nice, and it'll be a little bit random each time. So that works really well, actually. All right, so we've got our players come up here. We've got our 3 different mortar rounds landing. And now they've got to get into this town. And now we got to start figuring out how do we want to do this. So there's a few different things we can do, right? So the first thing is we don't necessarily know how they're going to come in. Are they going to come straight down and head directly for where this thing has the point? Are they going to kind of come down the hill into this lower area and fight their way up? Are they going to try to flank up and around through this little bit? And we kind of have to prepare for all of that, right? If we build it so that we only want them coming up this way, and then they decide to come up here, right? It could lead to some problems. So let's look at this. How would we defend this if we were not necessarily trained Takistani insurgents? So I'm seeing some cool buildings here. I'm seeing, can put a marksman up there or a turret of some kind. Maybe they found a way to haul a Dishka up there or something like that. We've got some buildings here that they're going to want to occupy. They're going to want to fortify maybe some of these. We've got this area here. So I'm going to show you how I would do this using some different triggers and some different waypoints. But first, what I want to do is kind of set up my fortified positions that are going to stay the same no matter what. So let's use this. Let's say I'm going to want a static. Let's just use their 50 cal raised, where they got a 50 cal from. Who knows? Kind of wish it was a Dishka, but for the purpose of, for our example here, we'll go with this. Oh, why can't I move? There we go. So yeah, maybe they got a nice 50 cal up there, and then let's give him a friend. Let's say, is there assistant machine gunner? Perfect. Like that. And let's go ahead and turn off their pathing again. Actually, no, let's do deny examination, delete when empty, and then AI turn off their pathing. So that will handle that. So now we've got a nice little area for them to fight from. And I just realized I'm going to kind of move this a little bit. So I want this guy to be kind of, so he can traverse down a little bit if he needs to. Now he's up. So I just need to snap him back in. There we go. And then this guy can get moved over to here. I think it's because it's not quite level as I move him around. And then just move, whoops, move this. Every once in a while, the editor is going to fight you. This will be fine for now, for demonstration, right? As they move up, especially as they come down this hill, they're going to get engaged by this, and hopefully the marksman's good, because that's actually going to be kind of a tough shot, but that'll be fine. They can, they have to deploy smokes, they have to suppress. We want to challenge them a little bit. All right, what else can we do to sort of draw them into this area? We could set up, maybe fortify this house. Off camera, I was testing it a little bit. Normally, we could use some of these to help us with that, but It's not working. So we'll try that with a different building later. So for right now, what I want to do is get this house occupied. There's a couple different ways we can do that. I could probably use this interior ZEI to garrison the building. If I click that, this first one kind of takes a while because this sucks. I'm going to click through here. Looking for, here we go, Pakistani Insurgents Infantry Independent. It's going to set a default based on the building. Yes, sure. 5 seems fine. Enable dynamic simulation. We'll allow them to move when the player's near. Hit OK. And you'll see it has gone ahead and added a trigger, and it's added some people. Yeah, looks like already player present. And it's probably doing something with the script to allow them to move. I can't see it, but yeah. So this could be like, hey, they're going to stay garrisoned in this building until the players enter this trigger, which I suppose we want to make sure is server only. And then they'll be able to move, right? So they're not going to stay locked in this position, which is sometimes nice. We could also, if we wanted to be a little bit more dynamic, right? So that would be like, hey, we want this building to be fortified. What I could do is I could come in and attack Pakistani insurgents, do infantry, do a infantry squad, say, I'm just going to start them off to the side here. And I'm going to put a move order into there, but I'm going to change this to... So I'm going to change it to garrison over here under advanced. Now, I can explain it, or I can show it to you. All right, so I'm back in Zeus. I'm trying to get up there quickly. So we can see up here, there's that squad we spawned, and they're already moving. What they're going to do is they're going to go to that waypoint that we set. Let me turn the light on. Again, the players won't see this. Only you, the Zeus, will see this extra light level. And then they're going to say, okay, what can I occupy in this area? So they're going to go to certain different points. You can see this guy's going to head up on the balcony. This guy's going to get up on a roof. This guy's going to get in here. These guys are going to kind of hang back, but that's fine, right? So now we've made this slightly more dynamic. Instead of the enemy all getting in one building and then us having to do that for a bunch of buildings and then setting up triggers, this is going to spread them out a little bit more, which if it was an organized military is probably less realistic. But for insurgents, it might make sense that, you know, there's going to be a guy up here on a roof, another guy up here on a balcony, another guy kind of hiding in a corner. So it adds a nice little bit of dynamics to the operation. All right, let's see what else we can do to sort of fortify this area. So maybe what I can do, if I come over here, props, I can say maybe, oops, I have to be under individuals, barricade. Yeah, I can put up like some junk barricades here. And then just, you know, kind of copy and paste them around. You can kind of clip them into each other and it'll be fine. We can maybe put another, maybe a little fire team with an MG here. Yes, they can be sort of manning this barricade. I can get this guy with the FN kind of up here on top. Get this guy in there. So what we're doing is we're trying to set a scene, right? So these guys are all going to be up here in the barricade firing. Oh, I just realized it's a little tall. So what I can actually do is just, whoops, I didn't mean to double click. Just sort of, I have to turn off vertical mode there, and I can kind of sink this into the ground just a little bit, and sink this into the ground just a little bit. So now they can see over. And then let me just double check one thing in here. Yeah, so under special states, it's sometimes worth looking whenever you place props. You know, we can have dynamic simulation, again, just help with our frames a little bit. You can say whether or not it's going to be shown or it can be damaged. Sometimes you can make random things in Arsenal for some reason. You can, for whatever reason, I can make this barricade, you know, give people back ammo, which might, you know, hey, like this is like a little arsenal, this little weapon stash or something like that. But we don't want any of that at the moment. And then we'll go back into our people here. We can turn off the path. What else can we do? I can put another barricade here. Just to help kind of keep the players out there. I'll turn the surface mode back to that. So yeah, so now we can kind of limit the players' movements. They can enhance move over that probably, or get around that little gap I left. So maybe I would do that. And then I'll grab this 4-meter one. Do something kind of like that. Kind of make it, you know, a little bit more realistic. Check to see, yeah, dynamic simulation. So we already know we're gonna have like a squad of guys in here. I've got my machine gun turret up there. So yeah, I'm gonna turn the camera off, and I'm gonna go through and kind of just do more of that off camera. And then we'll pick it back up when I want to go to the more slightly more dynamic options for what we want to do. I'll see you then. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm not going fully into this because you could easily spend like hours getting this objective meticulously crafted. So we have a couple squads going to come into these two areas and kind of spread out. We have our little barricades and HMG set up from before. I set up a couple fire teams to kind of spread out up here with another MG position. And then I thought, hey, it might be interesting to put a minefield kind of in this area to see if it dissuades the players from getting up through here. Because, you know, trying to get through a minefield while an HMG is shooting down at you can be very tricky. And so maybe that kind of forces them to go up this way or around back that way. So now I want to add in something that's a little bit more dynamic than, you know, enemies just sort of running to a spot and then staying there. We're going to use guard triggers. Now, you might remember before that when we place a trigger, we had the option here of type guarded by whatever. And I'm going to put guarded by independent because we're working with green 4 forces. I'm going to make it server only. Now, the order you put these down in matters. The first one you place here is going to be the one with the... just spotted that random one there. This one here is going to be the highest priority. And then the second one will be the second highest and the third highest and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and we're going to look for areas that we want defended in descending priority. So maybe I want to have one here. I want them to go here. Maybe that area. Let's say they don't necessarily have to be buildings, right? We just want areas that we want to make sure are defended. We can kind of maybe avoid a little bit of the areas that our other fire teams are going to be in. So maybe we can say, I'm going to actually move this one here and then plus that. And I should probably refine how I'm placing these just a little bit, but again, just for demonstration purposes. Maybe put one here, right? And then let's go for that. We're going to assume up here, if I was doing this for real, I probably would have put some up here, but again, we're doing this for demonstration. And I'm just going to make sure all these did in fact copy. Yeah, guarded by independent, none. Okay, so what do we want to do? I'm actually going to move this into this building a little bit. So now what I can do is I can go to this infantry. Let's just use fire teams for now. I'm going to add a waypoint there, but I'm going to change this to a guard. And I'm going to do this pretty much for all of my triggers that I just set up. Now you can change up what they are. So maybe this one, let's see, actually, there's this insurgents, have a couple other things. What's in this bandit fire team? Yeah, they look pretty similar. They look like they fit in. Oh, what's he carrying? Oh, he's carrying an RPG, so that could be interesting. And it's all green for, so even though it's two different things, it'll be okay. And I'll go ahead and speed through this and fill you in what this does when I'm done. All right, so you can see I've added a unit for each of those triggers. You don't necessarily have to add one for each and every single one. And in fact, we probably have maybe a little too much contact in this town now for our up to 12 players. But again, that's something we can trim back on later in Zeus. You know, I can maybe go through actually even an editor and just be like, okay, get rid of those 2 guys from the squad, and maybe this guy, since he's in a rock anyways, knock some of these 4-man teams down to 3-man teams, etc. And I'd use a mixture of these insurgents and the 2035 insurgents, because again, they look similar enough. So what does this do? Well, let's jump into Zeus and I will demonstrate. All right, so I'm in game in Zeus. We can already see on the map everyone's kind of moving around. So we're going to give them a minute to sort of figure out what they're doing. All right, so we can see here these guys have moved to this. So what guard does is it's going to make them go to an area and then defend it. So out here in the open, maybe I should have added, you know, maybe a couple sandbags or something like that. And in theory, let me see if I can find a different one. They're supposed to sort of spread out in this guard area. But here we can see this guy is actually taking a position inside a building. These guys not so much. But it doesn't matter, right? They're moving around. They're defending an area. And if they were to be attacked by the enemy, they would actually move around to defend it. Now, what happens... Now, why are we doing this instead of just getting them to garrison? So what I can do, though, is if I come up here to, let's say, one of these groups. This was the highest priority one, right? And I'm going to hit end on my keyboard to kill them. They're no longer defending that. Needs to give them a minute. In fact, I'll even kill those guys as well. Oh, and stuff's dynamically simulated. So let me just go ahead and add in USMC. Yeah, fire team, whatever. Now they should start to simulate. There we go. Now everything's starting to move. I'm just dropping these in to make sure everything's actually simulating correctly. So will start to happen. You'll see the people that are on the guard waypoints are actually moving. They're not staying still inside their garrison buildings. They are actually reacting to the contact, and they are actually engaging the contact. Let me just do this. What we'll also start to see is as some of this contact, you know, gets downed and goes away, eventually the AI is going to say something like, hey, wait a minute, these 2 highest priority spots are no longer being guarded. May even be reading these guys as guards for some reason as well. So you'll see, you can kind of see it here, right? So these guys that were kind of at this furthest guard point have said, hey, the stuff behind us is no longer being guarded, and they're going to start to retreat back. So we can do this. So if we say, hey, we set up the highest priority thing is the mortars, and then the second highest is, you know, the kind of stuff around it, and we kind of went out in rings. This way, if the players kind of come up here as expected, it's fine. But if the players come all the way around the back, and let's say we had placed some guard triggers back here and they take this out, the AI is going to say, oh, instead of guarding this area, let me start to shift units back. And you can see now they're moving around. This isn't going to be perfect. It's Arma AI after all, but this will make the mission a lot more dynamic and keep things kind of interesting. And it also means less work for you as the mission editor, because now you don't have to set up for every single eventuality. You just set up some guard waypoints after you set up your sort of hard points, and the AI will sort of handle a lot of the rest of it for you. All right, so we could probably go on for another several hours about how to refine this and how to really get this going, but this should be more than enough to get you started for at least your first area of contact. Now, the problem we have to go with is, the problem we have to solve is what I meant to say, is that if you remember at the beginning, we talked about how, at the beginning of the last video, we talked about how less is more, right? You don't want to go overboard with the number of things you're placing because it's going to start to hog down your server and hog down your computer. But you can see we've added a lot of stuff and a lot of logics. And this is just one town. If we were then having to assault up into this area and then maybe catch another helicopter into this area, and we're setting up this kind of contact for everything, we're going to start to make this almost unplayable. So there's a few things we can do. So one thing I just realized I forgot to do earlier is I'm just going to set up my layer here and call this Nefer. Again, just to keep things easy for me. So the way we used to do it was we could go through and I could come in here and say show hide, make a module here and says apply to, and this is part of the reason I do the layers, right? Nefer, I want it to hide units. So at the start of the mission, it's going to hide everything. And then I would make another show hide where that applied to Nefer, and it would show the units, and then I would set up a trigger, right? I'd set up a trigger that covers this whole area, or maybe it's one of these triggers in here that, hey, when the players get to Puesto Vulcan, this all gets shown. And that does help. It helps a little bit. However, we've learned that just because it's hidden using that module, it saves some performance, but it doesn't save a ton of performance. So this is why I only learned this one recently when I was researching how to make these videos, and it's already been working pretty darn well. If we come up here, and this is going to be one of the reasons I say install Eden 2.0, even if you're going for pure vanilla. We have this thing called sector. I'm just going to put it kind of in the middle here. And what I want to do is I want it to affect everything, right? I could have it to only affect the units or only affect vehicles, things like that. I'm going to put on only once because I only want it to show it once and then deactivate it once and then not show up again. And then we're not going to worry about this yet. There's a video online that, if I remember, I'll link it in the description for a more detailed explanation of how this works with the layers and whatnot. But for now, we're not going to worry about that. I'm just going to use it to manage this whole area for me. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go into the map. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this, say, a 600 by 600 trigger. There's no height on this one. It's an infinite height. And you'll see now I've got this nice little circle. I'm just going to kind of move this around, but I want it to be maybe just after they get into Vulcan is when it will trigger. But now whenever they get near these other areas. So what does this do? Everything inside that zone will not be spawned at the top of the mission. When a blue 4 unit, or sorry, a player, not a blue 4, a player enters this circle, it will spawn all of these things for us, along with all of these triggers, all of their movement, everything. And then when we leave the sector, it will despawn everything. Let's demonstrate. All right, so we're back in Zeus. Close. I'm going to get up here. Now, confusingly, you're going to see the green circles, but if we look closer, you're going to see that there's nothing there. And there is an entity in there in Zeus, which tells me that it hasn't completely despawned them. I'm not sure exactly how different it is from just doing the show hide, but the fact that it's doing it all for me with just a zone, and I'm not going to have to set up a bunch of triggers, the fact that it's also despawned a ton of buildings, the fact that it will also re-despawn these after we leave is all very helpful. So as you can see, this is all set up, and then I'm just going to test this real quick. I think if I put in just a blue 4 guy, you'll see nothing happens, right? So I could have other AI entities in here, and it's not going to do anything. But let me come down here so I don't immediately get shot. If I put my... Well, actually, we said we wanted to be as soon as I go into here, right? So, oh, and it even... I just realized it's also going to apply to these blue 4s. So we're going to have to fix that later. But now if I teleport my Zeus in, give it a second. Now you see all these buildings popped in. All these guys popped in. All these guys have popped in, and they've started to move to their points that they are going to defend. So that'll happen. And then if I come over here and let's say we're done and we go back to base. Oh, I just realized that also triggered the timer for the mortars, so those are going to come in. Good, didn't hit me. Let me get my guy out of Fob Martin. And then you see, okay, it's despawned everything again. They're all missing, so now we're saving on a ton of performance. And because we hit only once, if I bring myself back, it's not going to come back. If I had unchecked that, if we're going to be kind of going to and from an area, it might be useful to uncheck that so that, you know, the people that got left behind that we didn't kill are still there doing stuff. But for this mission, where I just wanted to sort of despawn these after they leave, and then just keep the mission moving forward, makes it very useful. All right, y'all. I hope that was interesting and informative. We covered quite a bit today. We set up... where to go? We set up some minefields, and I even showed you how to set up a basic ambush and how we can use this module to kind of dynamically change how those work. We got some AI-triggered mortars to help set things off. And then in here, we kind of went through the basics of how to set up contact like this. You know, setting up your hard points and your fortified positions, and then maybe general areas you'd want to have garrisoned or hard point garrisoned. We used our guard triggers and waypoints to kind of change how the AI will adapt to what our players are doing. And then we even cap things off with this handy sector tool to kind of keep our performance high and keep us from bogging down everyone's machine. So from here, I'm probably going to take a short break from making these videos because what I need from here is for you all, either in the comments or on the Discord, if you're in Disposable Heroes, just leave me a comment for what you want me to cover next. Any specific things you want to learn how to do, if you want to go more in depth with certain triggers or different ways of doing artillery, reinforcement modules, maybe some more specific to Zeus videos. Just let me know what you want me to cover, and I'll start seeing if I can make some more targeted tutorials. Until then, I'm Annuncia, and I'll see you in the next one.